All right. Happy Friday, everybody. For those of you watching on all the platforms, and for those of you who are watching live, it would be awesome for Sharena and I to know where you are streaming from. So whether you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, or even on Twitter, one thing that always helps Sharena and I feel like we're not alone, because we're not, is the fact that we have people who are streaming and watching and giving us comments. And so that's always a really fun thing for us to interact with. And I am absolutely excited for today. I am a massive fan of Sharena, and we are so fortunate to have her joining us at Nobody Studios. What's been really fun about this journey is not only Sharena, you've taught us so much, but bring so much energy and enthusiasm to the table with your background and just who you are. And so I'm excited to introduce you and tell everybody more about who you are and what you do, and honestly, just to expose you to the rest of the Nobody crowd and the people out there, because you have so many things to say. And every time we connect and have conversations, I leave being like, well, that was really cool. And I learned something new, which is always awesome. So I want to make sure that everybody knows who you are. And so once again, we've done these before, but I'm always going to assume that, some people in here haven't even heard of Nobody Studios or don't have any idea of what we're doing. So my name is Dr. Erik Reis. I am one of the co-founders of Nobody Studios, and I'm also our director of health and wellness. And at Nobody Studios is a venture studio. The first question is always, well, what does that actually mean? A venture studio is a company or a startup that creates startups. And at Nobody Studios, we have the wild, audacious goal of creating 100 compelling companies in the next 5 years. And what's even crazier about that is we are actually on path to do so. So Nobody Studios, we are keenly focused on taking companies from ideation all the way through enterprise to help them essentially be a co-founder from a strategic standpoint, to help founders, co-founders, industry experts, brilliant individuals like Sharena who have ideas, who want to build companies. And our focus is to help them do just that: faster, more capital friendly, more efficiently, and more importantly, being profitable from day one. And so as we do these series, we bring on amazing individuals who we've attracted to our journey. And fortunately enough, here we are with Sharena. And Sharena is a brilliant individual. She's not just a researcher. She's not just a neuroscientist. She is yes and everything from a musician to having some of the best puns that I've ever heard of. So if it's not apparent, I'm a massive fan of Sharena's. And Sharena, I think for everybody out there who does know you and who doesn't know you, I think it will be awesome just to get a little bit more about your background, where you started, and kind of what brought you to this point of where you're at in your career right now. So I'd love for you to just go ahead and take it away.
There's the question of what really counts as the beginning. I suppose that life is this thing that is always a work in progress. And so, is there really a beginning? I guess that the beginning is that I was curious about how humans behave and why they do the things that they do, why things are the way that they are, and decided to investigate this when I was in middle school. So then I wrote a 45-page documentary on human behavior, typed single-spaced, when I was in middle school, because I was just curious and I wanted to write stuff down and really
In middle
explore.
school, by the way, right? In middle school?
Oh, can you ask the question again?
In middle school, correct. You wrote that in middle school?
Yeah, I was in 8th grade.
I love it.
Yep. So then this question of, well, where do thoughts come from? How do they emerge? Why do people act the way that they do? Why do how does the brain work? That came to be more of a question that pressed upon me over time as well. So I studied neuroscience eventually at the University of Michigan, and there I looked into brain rhythms and neural circuits in navigation and sleep, which is quite great because everyone navigates to some extent and everyone sleeps.
To some extent.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. Yeah. And where are you now, Sharena? I know that you're working with a startup in Silicon Valley.
Yeah. I am the first hire of this startup in the Silicon Valley that is in neurotechnology. we're a medical tech company. I am very happy to be on the team. I'm working with 5 other PhDs. And also, apart from that, I am working with Nobody Studios.
Yeah. And we're really fortunate to have you as well too. And of all the conversations that we've had in the past, I think one of the fun things for you and I has been to really, have some really in-depth and high-level discussions about like where we want to take, health and wellness in the studio, specifically in the health tech kind of space, right? And so while we could go on for multiple hours talking about that, so the reason why we kind of landed on individualized medicine is because this is really something that is really core to our DNA as a studio. And so, as we've had discussions back and forth on this, I would love to get your take on individualized medicine and like, what does it entail? What does it not entail? And from your research perspective, I'd love to hear a little bit more about things that you experience or haven't experienced with regards to individualized medicine, because I think you have a unique take on this as we've discussed in the past.
Yeah, one thought that I have is that scientific research is definitionally about finding generalizable results. If it can't be generalized, then is that a scientific study? But at the same time, there is this matter of development and practicality in terms of meeting people at the moment, because, of course, you can't have everyone as a petri dish necessarily so much. Though it would be really nice if we could for some indications. So then, okay, given that scientific research is about finding generalized results, then there comes this matter of how can we find solutions for particular individuals within this. And this is a great conversation to have, partly because Dr. Erik is a neurologist while I'm a neuroscientist. Okay, so then that is a goal of scientific research, but given that bioelectronic medicines can do things such as make closed loop systems where there is a measurement and also there is an administration of some electrical activity, then in that case, you can give a dose of electricity depending on what you've measured. Thus, you can prevent things from receiving too much electrical stimulation, but also you make sure that they receive the right amount. So it's not just individualizing medicine for the person, but individualizing medicine for the moment.
So with that being said, there's a reason why when you're in research, you do double-blind, placebo-controlled, randomized studies, right? How can we take that same logic and move it into the individualized medicine realm? Because I think that this is something that people have questions about. They say, well, aren't we already doing individualized medicine? And to a point, yes, we are, but can we get even more specific with it? I think that that's really the next step where we're at, right? So taking it from a genetic standpoint of saying, Sharena, here's the deck of cards you've been dealt. Erik, here's the deck of cards you've been dealt. It's really now about which card do you want to play? Which genes do you want to turn on and off? And whether that comes from various stimuli, structurally, neurologically, nutritionally, emotionally. There's so many ways that we impact our genome. This whole factor of epigenetics, right? So I'm curious to hear your take on those influences and kind of, maybe to kind of put a little bit of a forecast out there, like where do you see individualized medicine moving in the future? How will this impact our lives if we're doing this the right way?
All right, those are 4 questions, and I will answer the ones that I have collected and think that I can.
No worries.
Well, one thing that I saw at South by Southwest that I thought really resonated with me regarding a panel on the healthcare experience of 2030 is that nowadays healthcare, it really lags behind retail in terms of meeting people's needs. Whereas you can just expect to go to a store typically and buy what you need to solve your problem.
Mhm.
With a lot of things in healthcare, you can't quite do that. You might need to get various permissions, which is a good thing to avoid abuse. but at the same time, there is this matter of what if people need stuff
Yeah.
and they can't get it? And what if there are things such as healthcare deserts where there just really isn't that expertise in the middle of the country? So then I think that what will happen more over time is that, well, first of all, information, it's more accessible than ever before. But at the same time, collecting the right information is kind of tricky given that there is just so much information. I mean, what should I even eat with all of the information there is on what to eat?
Right.
And so with that, well, there comes a lot of uncertainty and this question of how to do due diligence on that kind of process.
Mhm.
So how would people go about this as scientists or clinicians? I think that these kinds of conversations will make for some great books that come out. Questions about how to question your physician, questions about how to talk with researchers and how researchers can talk with regular people, not not in terms of creating a pop psychology or a pop neuroscience or something like that, but in terms of being able to find the information that they need to solve their problems.
Yeah. Yeah. No, powerful. I think I think you hit the nail on the head with the observation of even, letting patients really have be in the driver's seat, let them have a seat at the table. I think for such a long time, and this was my experience when I was in practice, was that, you know, one of the most frustrating thing that I would experience is that most patients would come in and they don't even have the baseline knowledge to even formulate the questions to get the answers that they're actually looking for. While there's so much information out there in the world, they don't know what information is relevant to them and even how to use it to their advantage. And then at that point, even if they do have that, like you said, they don't even think about questioning their doctor, right? And so, these providers, and appropriately speaking, they are in a position of power to solve problems. They've been educated, gone to school, they have clinical experience. But one of the things that we still struggle with heavily is that in the United States specifically, the third leading cause of mortality and serious injury is medical error, and caused by medical doctors, right? Doctors of all kinds. And so there's a massive junction point for that. And I think that that's really powerful and a really important observation on your end, Sharena. With that being said, you said you were at South by Southwest. I think me and everybody else listening to this would love to hear, like, what was your experience like at South by Southwest? I know you had a good time because you're like the ultimate social butterfly in the science space. Like, what were some other takeaways that you got from South by Southwest that really hit home for you?
There were a lot of unions and reunions with people whom
Awesome.
I first met last year, whom I got to meet up with again, people whom I met up with for the first time, but even more, this opportunity to go from a panel that is about healthcare to a panel that is about gaming to another thing that is about brain computer interfaces. And so this matter of interdisciplinarity and the cross-pollination of that is what makes South by Southwest special. In a way, it's kind of like having gone to a liberal arts college, which I did for undergrad, but on a scale that only lasts for about a week. And also, there's film, and you can crash in on any course that you might want to, and you have the schedule ahead of time.
It's the best. Yeah. It sounds like an adult playground is what you just described there, Sharena.
It is.
Well, and I think you're being humble as well too. So you were also asked to come to South by Southwest. Do you want to tell us a little bit about you being a panelist and having some opportunities there?
Oh, I wasn't a panelist this year, but
Oh,
I
I
am
thought
on
you were.
the advisory board.
That's what it is. That's what it is. And I know that as a result of the work that you've done and the writing that you've been doing, you've been getting a lot more opportunities with that too, which is completely appropriate and exciting for you. So I'm curious, like, what is something that you've been thinking about recently that is something that's like occupying your brain's real estate? Like, is there a topic or an idea or a specific, area with neuroscience or medicine or healthcare that you're kind of getting into and kind of like thinking through a bit?
Yeah, I've been thinking about the enteric nervous system quite a bit. I've written a
Interesting.
few articles on that for neurotech reports, but the enteric nervous system, it is about the gut. And the gut, it's innervated, it's controlled by neurons, and amazingly, the gut, it produces more dopamine than the brain does. The gut produces a lot of acetylcholine as well. And one of the first symptoms of a lot of neurodegenerative diseases is constipation and various other digestive problems. So that is that is currently occupying my mind and my gut sometimes.
That whole gut brain connection that they talk about, right?
Indeed.
There you go. Yeah, really interesting, and this is something that I'm also heavily intrigued by too. And on top of what Sharena just stated as well, not only do you have more serotonin produced there than anywhere else in the nervous system, but most of your immune system is in there, right? So your gut-associated lymphatic tissue, this whole GALT type of system, is actually found in your intestinal tract, which is amazing and really powerful. And of course, it is. It's the first area where we have an opening to the real world, right? So that's really interesting. Sharena, I don't have the article reference on hand, but I was at a seminar and one of the lecturers told me that there are more neurons in the enteric nervous system than there are in your spinal cord. He said there's up to 100 million neurons in your enteric nervous system. And I can't fact check that offhand, but when he told me that, I thought that was pretty powerful. And there's probably a really good reason why we have that. So is there anything that's jumped out at you with the research that you've done about the enteric nervous system or the gut that you think is really interesting?
I have never done any research in terms of direct research of in a lab on the enteric nervous system.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Do
I,
you know anybody who has?
I've observed that there are some organizations that do. For example, there's NeuroGI with the WIS Institute in
Mhm.
Switzerland, and also Boomerang Medical and Setpoint Medical. They have their innovations.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I would assume that that's probably going to happen more and more often as time goes on. So there's a lot to be learned about that. So with that being said, Sharena, we've been really fortunate to have you come on really early as an advisor and as somebody that we can use for counsel and to help us build things and bring your brilliant brain to the forefront. The Idea Lab has been something that you've been a part of and help us to grow it as well. For those who are listening, I mean, there's a lot of people who've been following us for a while, and whether they're nobodies who've invested in the crowdfunding, they're angel investors, there's somebody who just likes what we're doing, or there's somebody who's interested in getting more involved. Like what initially attracted you to the studio to bring you to the point where now you're working with us and I can call you a fellow nobody, which is always fun to say. Like what brought you to that point?
What brought me to the studio was I was looking around at various things that I could be doing after graduating from grad school, and I happened to reach out to Gina Poe, who is a professor at UCLA in neuroscience. She studies sleep a lot, and I asked her if she knew anyone in medical technology whom I should talk with. Then she eventually responded to me saying, I have a friend who is starting Nobody Studios, which is working to start 100 companies, some of which will be in health and wellness over the next 5 years. And I thought, well, that's kind of nuts, but that's fantastic. In that case, well, there's a lot of things that need innovation in health, even when it comes to user experience, design of
Mhm.
things that have already gone through the FDA clearance process. I mean, how many things could just be made more useful for more kinds of people? If you had, let's say, a first aid kit that only works on adults, but it's not so good for children, or it's very hard to use for people with disabilities, then that is a consumer product that is in the healthcare space that could be upgraded particularly for some kinds of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought about how this could be done in various different ways. So there could be a way of making these things that exist in healthcare that are consumer products that are good for people. There's that, and also there's the rev stand, which is an idea that I came up with at one point because I was playing with kind of fuzzy math in my mind. Okay, if we're trying to launch 100 companies in 5 years, then what tends to come to market first? Medical devices. To bring a new medical device to market, that takes 7 to 10 years
Mm-hmm.
to get through the FDA process. And then when it comes to regular technology that is not making claims about what kinds of indications it may be after, then that's a lot faster of a process. And then there is an even faster process, which is storytelling and marketing. And so I was thinking about this all in my mind and how, well, ultimately, we do want to create things that are going to have have a lot of thought behind them as their foundation. But also, people need help with things. So,
Fair.
okay, how can we build more products that do that? I think that one way is to create a platform that evaluates product market fit so that we know, okay, whatever we are producing, people, they want it, otherwise it doesn't get funded. And also, since all of the companies that would be on this rev stand would be under the control of Nobody Studios because there are Nobody Studios companies, then we can know that people will have their orders fulfilled, and they'll be assessed for feasibility before they even go onto the platform, so that it's not like we come up with this pie in the sky. Oh, we're going to create this this kind of healthcare or wellness device, but
Yeah.
it doesn't have the substantiation behind it.
Yeah. Well, what a crazy concept to build a company that nobody wants, right? What's interesting about that stat is that's actually one of the top reasons why companies fail, startups fail, is that there's actually not a product market fit, or they build something that nobody wants. And you and I are not going to spend any more time trying to reinvent the VCR, regardless of how much money we get, because it's just never going to work. So, what's been super fun having you, Sharena, is that you always bring a really good attitude to everything, but you're always thinking of things. And every time I leave a conversation with you, I'm always like, oh, that was interesting. Or now I need to go research the next 5 hours and run myself down a rabbit hole of peer-reviewed articles and whatnot. And I think that that is kind of just it kind of encompasses the people that we have attracted to the studios, people who are free thinkers, people who are willing to challenge the status quo, people who are crazy enough to think that we're crazy enough to be able to build 100 companies in 5 years. And, what's been really fun with you too is your background is so vast. Like, it really is fully encompassing for what we're trying to do within the studio, which is individualizing precision medicine, plant medicine, mental health, addiction, substance abuse, wearable technologies. I mean, we have so many things that we're looking into that really do have this cross-pollination effect that you've described. And I think that that's been really remarkable to see, but also be a part of and building it from the ground up too. And so I know we only have a little bit of time left. I know that you have to get to work since it's morning for you in San Francisco and evening for me in London. But if you could leave our viewers and people watching this with like one actionable item or one really interesting thing about something that you're excited about in the future of medicine and healthcare, like what would that be? Like, leave them with like, foaming at the mouth a bit. They're like, what's coming in the future that you see will have a massive impact on our health?
Yeah, I think that in this world of data drivenness and the world that has a lot of artificial intelligence, I like to think back to Oliver Sacks, who said that we are a combination of biology and biography.
I like
And
that.
yeah, so there's also some healing effects in terms of what kinds of stories we tell ourselves as well. Am I going
Yeah.
to identify as a person who is too lazy to ever exercise? Or am I going to engineer bicycling into my everyday life? Am I going to say, you know what, I don't trust my physician and I'm intimidated by them? Or am I going to ask them questions and try to get at various things that may be unintended consequences of a course of treatment if I'm in that?
Fair. Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah, that's powerful. And I love Oliver Sacks. For those of you who haven't read any of his books, he's amazing. As you can see, I mean, clearly Sharena is a bright and intelligent individual. We're super lucky to have Sharena for you to be a part of the studio and believing in what we're doing and helping us literally build the plane as we fly it. And for those of you out there who want to learn more about the studio, we obviously have a website, nobodystudios.com, but there's still time for those who are interested in becoming investors. And what we're doing right now is we're having a crowdfunding round of investment. This is an SEC registered investment where you literally are going to be able to have equity in the studio. And what's powerful about this is that, in traditional venture capital funds or traditional venture funds, you have to have a massive Rolodex and a ton of money to get into these rounds, to get equity into these companies that they're investing in. And what we wanted to do as a studio is we wanted to change that. And so, for as little as $100, you can have a part of our story in Nobody Studios. And all you need to do is go to republic.com/Nobody Studios and invest and take a look at what we're building, who we've attracted to the journey. We have amazing people like Sharena and some amazing, not only investors, but people who are helping us build this, who are going to make a massive difference. So Sharena, I want to just thank you again today from the bottom of my heart for joining us. I love hanging out with you, and I'm super excited to build cool companies with you, which is even more fun. But what really gets me up in the morning is knowing that we're going to help a ton of people in the process. And I know that you share the same ethos that I do. And so Sharena, thank you again for joining us. For those of you who are watching, thank you for joining us as well. And Sharena and I are probably going to end up doing a couple of more of these. So we'll keep you posted on when the next one is. So Sharena, anything else you want to leave us with?
Stay enchanted.
I love that. Awesome. Thanks, Sharena. Thanks, everybody else. We'll see you later, okay?
Thank you.